Zane could see the tendrils of magic fluttering behind her like ribbons, blue and silver, silver and blue. They billowed and swelled and spiraled in the air. They left their etchings on the ground. Zane took off after the child at a run, cleaning up as she did so. A donkey became a toy, a house became a bird, a barn was suddenly made of gingerbread and spun sugar. She has no idea what she is doing, Zan thought. The magic poured out of the girl. Zan had never seen so much in all her life. She could so easily hurt herself, Zan fussed, or someone else, or everyone in town. Zan tore down the road, her old bones groaning, undoing spell after spell before she caught up to the wayward girl. Nap time, the witch said, brandishing both palms, and Luna collapsed onto the ground. She had never interfered in the will of another, never. Years ago, almost 500, she made a promise to her guardian, Zosimos, that she never would. But now, what have I done? Zan asked herself. She thought she might be sick. The other children stared. Luna snored. She left a puddle of drool on the ground. Is she all right? One boy asked. Zan picked Luna up, feeling the weight of the child's face on her shoulder and pressing her wrinkled cheek against the little girl's hair. She's fine, dear, she said. She's just sleepy. She is so sleepy, and I do believe you have chores to do. Zan carried Luna to the guest house of the mayor, where they happened to be staying. Luna slept deeply. Her breathing was slow and even. The crescent moon birthmark on her forehead glowed a bit. A pink moon. Zan smoothed the child's black hair away from her face, winding her fingers in the shining curls. What have I been missing? She asked herself out loud. There was something she wasn't seeing, something important. She didn't think about her childhood if she could help it. It was too sad, and sorrow was dangerous, though she couldn't quite remember why. Memory was a slippery thing, slick moss on an unstable slope, and it was ever so easy to lose one's footing and fall. And anyway, 500 years was an awful lot to remember. But now her memories came tumbling toward her. A kindly old man, a decrepit castle, a clutch of soldiers with their faces buried in books, a mournful mother dragon saying goodbye, and something else too, something scary. Zan tried to pluck the memories as they tumbled by, but they were like bright pebbles in an avalanche. They flashed briefly in the light, and then they were gone. There was something she was supposed to remember. She was sure of it. If only she could remember what. Chapter 8, in which a story contains a hint of truth. A story? Fine. I will tell you a story, but you won't like it, and it will make you cry. Once upon a time, there were good wizards and good witches, and they lived in a castle in the center of the wood. Well, of course the forest wasn't dangerous in those days. We know who is responsible for cursing the forest. It is the same person who steals our children and poisons the water. In those days, the protectorate was prosperous and wise. No one needed the road to cross the forest. The forest was a friend to all, and anyone could walk to the enchanter's castle for remedies or advice or general gossip. But one day, an evil witch rode across the sky on the back of a dragon. She wore black boots and a black hat and a dress the color of blood. She howled her rage to the sky. Yes, child, this is a true story. What other kinds of stories are there? As she flew on her cursed dragon, the land rumbled and split. The rivers boiled and the mud bubbled and the entire lakes turned into steam. The bog, our beloved bog, became toxic and rank, and people died because they could not get air. The land under the castle swelled. It rose and rose and rose, and great plumes of smoke and ash came billowing from its center. It's the end of the world, people cried. And it might have been if one good man had not dared to stand up to the witch. One of the good wizards from the castle, no one remembers his name, saw the witch on her fearsome dragon as they flew across the broken land. He knew what the witch was trying to do. She wanted to pull the fire from the bulge of the earth and spread it across the land like a cloth over a table. She wanted to cover us all in ash and fire and smoke. Well, of course that's what she wanted. No one knows why. How could we? She's a witch. She needs no rhyme and no reason, neither. Of course this is a true story. Haven't you been listening? And so the brave little wizard, ignoring his own great peril, ran into the smoke and flame. He leaped into the air and pulled the witch back off her dragon. He threw the dragon into the flaming hole in the earth, stopping it up like a cork in a bottle. But he didn't kill the witch. The witch killed him instead. This is why it doesn't pay to be brave. Bravery makes nothing, protects nothing, results in nothing. It only makes you dead. And this is why we don't stand up to the witch, because even a powerful old wizard was no match to her. I already told you this story is true. I only tell true stories. Now off with you, and don't let me catch you shirking on your chores. I might send you to the witch and have her deal with you. Chapter 9, in which several things go wrong. The journey home was a disaster. "Grandmama," Luna cried, "a bird!" And a tree stump became a very large, very pink, and very perplexed-looking bird, who sat sprawled on the ground, wings akimbo, as if shocked by its own existence. Which, Zan reasoned, the poor thing probably was. She transformed it back into a stump the moment the child wasn't looking. Even from that great distance, she could sense its relief. "Grandmama," Luna shrieked, running up ahead. "Cake!" And the steam up ahead suddenly ceased. The water vanished and became a long river of cake. "Yummy," Luna cried, grabbing Cake by the handful, smearing multicolored icing across her face. Zan hooked her arm around the girl's waist, vaulted over the cake stream with her staff, and shooed Luna forward along the winding path up the slope of the mountain, undoing the accidental spell over her shoulder. "Grandmama, butterflies! Grandmama, a pony! Grandmama, berries!" Spell after spell erupted from Luna's fingers and toes, from her ears and eyes. Her magic skittered and pulsed. It was all Zan could do to keep up. At night, after falling into an exhausted heap, Zan dreamed of Zosimos the wizard, dead now these 500 years. In her dream, he was explaining something important, but his voice was obscured by the rumble of the volcano. She could only focus on his face as it wrinkled and withered in front of her eyes, his skin collapsing like the petals of a lily drooping at the end of the day. When they arrived back at their home, nestled beneath the peaks and craters of the sleeping volcano, and wrapped in the lush smell of the swamp, Glurk stood at his full height, waiting for them. "Zan," he said, as Firion danced and spun in the air, screeching a newly created song about his love for everyone that he knew. "It seems our girl has become more complicated." He had seen the strands of magic skittering this way and that and launching in long threads over the tops of the trees. He knew even at that great distance that he wasn't seeing Zan's magic, which was green and soft and tenacious, the color and texture of lichen clinging to the lee of the oaks. No, this was blue and silver, silver and blue, Luna's magic. Zan waved him off. "You don't know the half of it," she said, as Luna went running to the swamp to gather the irises into her arms and drink in their scent. As Luna ran, each footstep blossomed with iridescent flowers. When she waded into the swamp, the reeds twisted themselves into a boat, and she climbed aboard, floating across the deep red of the algae coating the water. Firion settled himself at the prow. He didn't seem to notice that anything was amiss. Zan curled her arm across Glurk's back and leaned against him. She was more tired than she'd ever been in her life. "This is going to take some work," she said. Then, leaning heavily on her staff, Zan made her way to the workshop to prepare to teach Luna. It was, as it turned out, an impossible task. Zan had been 10 years old when she was in magic. Until then, she had been alone and frightened. The sorcerers who studied her weren't exactly kind. One in particular seemed to hunger for sorrow. When Zosimos rescued her and bound her to his allegiance and care, she was so grateful that she was ready to follow any rule in the world. Not so with Luna. She was only 5, and remarkably bullheaded. "Sit still, precious," Zan said over and over and over, as she tried to get the girl to direct her magic at a single candle. "We need to look inside the flame in order to understand the young lady no flying in the classroom." "I am a crow, Grandmama," Luna cried, which wasn't entirely true. She had simply grown black wings and proceeded to flap about the room. "Caw, caw, caw," she cried. Zan snatched the child out of the air and undid the transformation. Such a simple spell, but it knocked Zan to her knees. Her hands shook and her vision clouded over. "What is happening to me?" Zan asked herself. She had no idea. Luna didn't notice. She transformed a book into a dove and enlivened her pencils and quills so that they stood on their own and performed a complicated dance on the desk. "Luna, stop," Zan said, putting a simple blocking spell on the girl, which should have been easy and should have lasted at least an hour or two. But the spell ripped from Zan's belly, making her gasp, and then didn't even work. Luna broke through the block without a second thought. Zan collapsed onto a chair. "Go outside and play, darling," the old woman said, her body shaking all over. "But don't touch anything, and don't hurt anything, and no magic." "What's magic, Grandmama?" Luna asked as she raced out the door. There were trees to climb and boats to build, and Zan was fairly certain she saw the child talking to a crane. Each day the magic became more unruly. Luna bumped tables with her elbow and accidentally transformed them to water. She transformed her bedclothes to swans while she slept. They made an awful mess. She made stones pop like bubbles. Her skin became so hot it gave Zan blisters, or so cold that she made a frostbitten imprint of her body on Glurk's chest when she gave him a hug.